Here in the studio, Shiri is still with us, and we are joined by Asher Fredman, director of Misgav Institute for National Security. Abbas is going to Gaza. Who's going to greet him there?
First of all, I'm not sure if the Egyptians or Israel are going to be so quick to let him in. But Abbas has been adopting more and more this anti-American, anti-Western approach. We saw that in his visit to China about a year ago. We saw that in his recent visit to Russia, where he called Putin our dearest friend and who we trust and we love. We see it now in his going to Turkey and his attacks on America from the Turkish parliament.
Right. Shiri, question of what's going to happen in Gaza the day after. Abbas was a candidate, but it's not happening.
Well, we're so far away from that debate, actually, to be realized or be concretely discussed. I don't think it's a question. We can say one thing. Both the people of the West Bank and the people of Gaza despise Mahmoud Abbas and doesn't want to see him as their leader. He's a corrupt leader. Some say he's anti-Semitic. He definitely let the incitement against Israelis and Jews also in the West Bank and other places continue for all this time. And not really promoting the future of the Palestinian people.
So where is this going to? I mean, Israel cannot choose who to deal with over there, or can Israel do this?
No, we're not the ones that are choosing. Right now, the Israeli government, at least its goal is to defeat Hamas and take him out of Gaza. And they're not discussing what's going to happen in the West Bank. Although, you know, Netanyahu's government for many years has done not a lot to, let's say, strengthen Mahmoud Abbas's government.
So what's going to be in Gaza? A vacuum is not a good solution for Israel either.
All of the proposals come down to this idea where you have Palestinian local actors who don't support terror, who agree to a demilitarized state, with the assistance of international actors, regional actors. All the various plans come down to that. Fatah yes, Fatah no, Dahlan yes, Dahlan no. The real question, though, is Israel going to go all the way in defeating Hamas? Because unless and until Israel goes all the way in defeating Hamas, all these other plans are just in the air, because no other actor, no Palestinian, not regional, not international, will be able to do much of anything in Gaza, while Hamas is still the dominant power on the ground.
We're talking now about negotiations in Doha as we speak. This is ending the war, basically.
If, in fact, that is the case, Hamas will remain the dominant power on the ground, even if they accept some sort of technocratic government officially. And again, I don't believe that in such a case, not the UAE, not Saudi Arabia, not the US, not the PA, not the EU, will be able to exercise any kind of real authority. Hamas will remain the dominant power on the ground. Insofar as any aid comes in, it will go to Hamas, and we'll see ourselves in another military conflict, unfortunately, in a couple of years down the road.
Right. How do you see the end game over there?
Well, the end game is that we have for the hostages, I hope we reach some sort of deal, and then we have to decide when to start the real war to defeat our enemies. We need to choose the timing, the targets, the strategy, and the strategy must be aimed at Iran and the head of Iran. And how do you, try to close off all the routes that they can finance and arm all their proxies, and it's a much more difficult task. It takes time and effort and needs partnerships. I think it's doable, but it's definitely hard. But going into a full regional war is not easy, and defeating Hamas, it's going to take years, and I don't know how much longer. There's a lot of consequences to the Israeli government, Israeli economy, to its international affairs. There's a lot at stake. This is a serious debate, not one to do in the studio. But I think it's not realistic, because I don't see them reaching a deal in Doha today, unfortunately.
Anyway, right. Let's talk about some remarkable quotes from Saudi Crown Prince MBS bin Salman that were published in Politico. He practically is saying that he fears for his life if he pursue this normalization with Israel and so on. You are quite familiar with the Abraham Accords. Were you surprised to hear these kind of things?
The Saudi Crown Prince has shown remarkable courage, not just in terms of creating an opening for normalization with Israel, but also in terms of various social and religious reforms in his country. And that's created not a few enemies for him. Now remember, the Qatar and Muslim Brotherhood propaganda machines like Al Jazeera have been turning public opinion very much against Israel. And the Saudi Crown Prince continues to be interested in peace with Israel for a price like this, a price like that. That's something that needs to be discussed. But he is certainly taking risks in continuing to support the idea of the benefits of regional cooperation and normalization.
But look at the leaders of the UAE, even Morocco. They did this, as part of the Abraham Accords. No major problem.
Well, Saudi Arabia has external enemies. A lot of them are basically Iran and its proxies, and it has internal enemies to the Crown Prince and what's going on. Exactly what Asher said. Iran, with the Houthis and with its own forces, can cut off, both sides of Saudi Arabia and its ability to export oil, which is the main component of its GDP, of its economy, and that could be that's kind of where they have them by the throat. And this is why they had the operation in Yemen, which failed miserably, and they were also attacked in 2019 by Iran. And the United States, fortunately, with the Trump administration, and I think this was like the primal sin of what we're seeing in the Middle East, didn't stand by them, didn't consider that, although they'd had an American-Saudi alliance for decades, didn't consider that as if someone's attacking them, like they consider an attack on Israel an attack on the U.S. So from the Crown Prince's perspective, unless that change, unless he gets guarantees for its security, for his personal security, and the security of his regime, it's maybe a price he's not willing to pay. But you have to remember there's a negotiation going on, a tough one, and I think you have to see that in that context as well. As the Crown Prince is trying to get as much as he can from the deal with the U.S.
Another issue, he stresses the Palestinian issue, which was absent from the Abraham Accords. That's a major difference.
In the end of the day, he is, I believe, primarily concerned about what Saudi Arabia can get from the United States, as Shiri mentioned, the defense alliance, the civilian nuclear power, etc. Now, I don't know about his personal opinion. Certainly, many of his Saudis and people across the Arab world do truly and authentically support the Palestinian people, and he may well as well. It'll really come down to, I think, what the United States is willing to offer, how far Israel is willing to go. Now, if his demand requires Israel to take on an existential threat, then it may not be possible. But overall, and this is why the Abraham Accords with the UAE, with Morocco, with Bahrain have continued, because the underlying economic and security and diplomatic and cultural logic is very, very strong. There's still, that logic still exists to support Israeli-Saudi normalization.
All right. Thank you both.